Welcome to Storytimer at Large. Dennis Madden. Dennis Madden was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Madden of Alpena, Ohio. Dennis went to Central Catholic High School in Alpena. He was married and had one child and another on the way in 1964. Christmas was coming up on December 21st. I imagine Dennis was thinking about getting some shopping done for his wife. Maybe he was a last-minute shopper. He might have had the radio tuned to Christmas music that night at the Shell station, or maybe a ball game. The Tri-State Shell station was located at the corner of Princeton Pike and East Kemper Road in Cincinnati in 1964. I found another Shell station that is, I think, at the same location still. But it's a different looking building than the one Dennis was in that day. Dennis Madden was the manager of the Tri-State Shell Station. He was young, but very serious about his job. He was actually trained in industrial drafting, which was how everything was designed back in the day, and it was drawn by people. Now we have computer-aided design, but back in those days it was all paper, pencil, and lots of tools. He hadn't yet found a job in that field yet, and so without finding something in his area of study, he applied for the position at the Shell station, and he got it, and that would just have to do for now. I'm sure he was seeking other employment, but he was also giving this job his all in the meantime. Dennis Madden was well liked at work. He was described as, quote unquote, the quietest guy. He was shot and killed on December 21st, 1964, while at work. Dennis had been mopping the service bay floor around 3:15 a.m. Someone surprised him and demanded cash. Dennis was shot 5 times with a .38 caliber weapon in the robbery attempt while he was fleeing from the building. He sadly fell in the street and died quickly from his injuries. Strangely enough, another young overnight worker at a nearby Cocaline gas station had a similar experience. As he entered the men's room after 3 a.m. to mop it, he was attacked and hit on the head. He was knocked unconscious. His wallet, containing about $76 in cash, was taken. The empty wallet was later found on an embankment near yet another gas station. So it seems like someone is staking out gas stations and waiting for a moment where he could have access at the nighttime attendant without, where they would be, staring right back at each other, right there in person. I wonder why that was. Why not just walk up with a gun and demand cash? I don't know. But it seems like someone is stalking them, watching these gas stations until they do see the attendant either open the service bay doors to mop or walk out of the locked, I'm sure, office at that time of night and go out to the men's room, which in those days they were always on the outside of the building. The door to the washroom was on the outside of the building. So, yeah. So that's a strange situation. It could have been just about anyone, I think, but I would look at Eugene William Gall Jr. for this series of gas station robberies and the murder of Dennis Madden. I believe that Eugene William Gall Jr. was back in Ohio living with his parents in Hillsborough at the time. We know that he's capable of armed robbery because he committed an armed robbery in 1978. It's one of the last crimes he committed before being sentenced to life in prison for the murders of Beth Ann Moat and Lisa Jansen. After abducting, raping, and murdering Lisa Jansen, Gall robbed a store and even robbed each of the customers in that store at gunpoint. Gall needed money back in late 1964, though. He had been discharged from the Army after a peeping Tom arrest. I think it must have been more than just peeping. Gall, we know from his later crimes, arrests, and incarcerations, Gall was a serial rapist. He drove around a lot, and you'd need money and gas in order to continue to do that. I suspect him of the June 1964 murder of Jessica Minter and the December 1964 murder of Beverly Jarosh as well. I believe he gained access to their homes by wearing his dad's postal carrier uniform. I think he wore a spare uniform of his dad's when simply stalking potential victims as well. Who is going to think that the mailman who's walking by is any sort of a problem, any sort of a danger? And if he is looking around the side of the house, he could always say, "Oh, I thought I saw a lady in there fall." He could make up a story and say just about anything, and people would believe him. I also suspect him of the November 1964 murders of Dennis and Evelyn Kobe. Dennis Kobe was an orderly at the VA psychiatric ward in Cincinnati. The Kobes also lived near that hospital. I believe Gall may have encountered him there and developed a grudge against Mr. Kobe. I think Gall followed him home after work that day in November. It was the afternoon before Thanksgiving. The Kobes were shot in their garage with a .38 caliber weapon. I know this is a lot of conjecture, but what if those .38 caliber bullets from November 1964 in the Kobes murder, what if those matched the December 1964 Shell Station crime scene of Dennis Madden? It's pretty interesting. I wonder if bullets from both the crime scenes, the Dennis Madden and Mr. and Mrs. Kobe murders, could be compared. I wonder if any fingerprints were left behind, and if that evidence was saved. I wonder if those fingerprints might match Eugene William Gall Jr. I imagine that if Gall killed Jessica Minter and Evelyn and Dennis Kobe, and that's the murders that happened in June of 1964 and November of 1964. I would have imagined that he would have been very concerned with not getting caught. He still needed money. He still felt compelled to drive around and stalk women. What if he was trying to sneak up on a gas station attendants and just knock them out? He was probably thinking about ballistics comparisons, possibly tying him to an earlier crime. He brought the gun that night, but didn't really want to use it, and then Dennis Madden ran and could potentially identify him. So he shot in order to eliminate a witness. Serial killers have an incredibly high level of self-preservation instinct. We do know that Gall was arrested in December 1970 for a series of armed robberies, abductions, and rapes in Lima, Ohio. I mentioned that a little earlier on in this case. He was so he's committing armed robbery in 1970, just a few years after this armed robbery. In 1970, he lived in Middletown, and he's driving to Lima, committing these crimes regularly enough to be nicknamed the Friday Night Rapist. In 1977, he's back in Hillsborough with his parents and driving regularly to Dayton and to Cincinnati. What he did was volunteer to drive elderly neighbors to their doctor's appointments. He used the wait time then to stalk, abduct, assault, and murder Beth Ann Mote in October of 1977. And he did the same to Lisa Jansen in April of 1978. So all that driving wasn't just to be a nice guy, it was to have the opportunity to get out into other communities and to do these murders. A gas station robbery and shooting could be just about anybody, but I think gall should definitely be looked at. Dennis Madden's murder is still unsolved. If you have a tip, please use the link below. It's going to be in the comments. Rest in peace, Dennis.